The leader barely breathed. His grip on the rifle tightened, but his instincts screamed that raising it would be a death sentence. The tiger stood between the corpses of his fallen comrades, blood dripping from its fangs, golden eyes locked onto him. Silent. Waiting. Baba Yaga stood beside it now, swaying slightly but unwavering. His gun didn't waver either. A moment stretched between them, thick with unspoken truth. The leader was not the predator anymore. He was prey. He forced himself to swallow the fear clawing at his throat. You're injured, he said, voice low, measured. You can't win this fight. Baba Yaga's lips twitched, amusement flickering behind his eyes. You're assuming it's still a fight. The leader inhaled sharply. His mind raced, searching for an exit, a strategy, anything. The ship was too far. His elite men were dead. It had taken less than a minute. The others had never stood a chance. And neither did he. But assassins did not beg. With a sudden burst of movement, he twisted, throwing a flash charge at the ground. The explosion of light and sound shattered the moment, forcing the tiger to recoil. The leader bolted, instincts taking full control. His legs pumped furiously as he sprinted toward the jagged ruins ahead. If he could reach cover, if he could get just a few seconds, a weight slammed into his back. Air vanished from his lungs as he hit the ground, the force of the impact cracking the reinforced plating of his armor. His vision blurred, head spinning from the blow. Clawed paws pressed into his shoulders, pinning him effortlessly. He felt the slow, deliberate pressure of teeth grazing the side of his neck. A growl rumbled through his bones. His breath hitched. It was over. But the final blow never came. The pressure remained, a cruel promise of death held just out of reach. And then a voice, low and calm, broke through the ringing in his ears. Not yet. The tiger released him, stepping back with fluid grace. The leader gasped, chest heaving, as he struggled onto his hands and knees. He turned his head to see Baba Yaga standing a few feet away, watching. A test. A punishment. A choice. The leader's hands curled into fists. Humiliation burned hotter than the pain in his body. He had been reduced to nothing, toyed with, spared only by the whim of a man he had mocked. It would have been easier to die. Baba Yaga holstered his weapon, turning away as if the matter was already settled. The tiger followed suit, moving in perfect step beside him. The leader remained kneeling in the dirt, panting, shivering. He had lived. But the legend of Baba Yaga had only grown stronger. The leader knelt in the dirt, every breath ragged. His body screamed in pain, but the humiliation cut deeper than any wound. The others were dead. The galaxy's finest assassins reduced to blood and silence in mere seconds. And he had been left alive. Not as a mercy. As a message. The tiger lingered beside Baba Yaga, its golden eyes never leaving him. Not a single wasted movement, not a single unnecessary sound. It had been trained to perfection, an apex predator enhanced beyond natural limits. The leader had seen cybernetic war beasts before, but this was something else. Something smarter. Deadlier. He forced himself to his feet, muscles trembling. He could still fight. He could still try. Baba Yaga glanced at him, a single look that made his thoughts wither before they could form into action. The leader froze. It was the same feeling prey had when realizing it had been spotted by a predator too vast, too inevitable to escape. A rustling sound. Distant. A ship approaching. The assassins hadn't come alone. Reinforcements. The leader's mind seized onto the thought like a lifeline. He wasn't out of this yet. He straightened, forcing arrogance back into his stance, back into his voice. This isn't over. You killed my squad, but more are coming. His lips curled into a weak smirk. You're wounded. You won't survive another wave. Baba Yaga didn't respond. Didn't acknowledge the threat. The tiger's ears twitched. Its head lifted slightly, nostrils flaring, catching a scent on the cold, dry air. Then it turned, slow and deliberate, facing the distant sky. The leader followed its gaze. A sleek gunship cut through the atmosphere, engines howling against the silence of the battlefield. It was heavily armed, designed for precision strikes and extraction. They had underestimated Baba Yaga once. They wouldn't again. A voice crackled through his earpiece. "Commander, report. We're inbound." Relief surged through him. He pressed a bloody finger to his comm, never taking his eyes off Baba Yaga. "He's here. But he's injured. We have him." A pause. Static. Then a cautious reply. "What about the team?" The leader hesitated. His jaw clenched. "Bring the heavy artillery." The ship adjusted its course, descending faster. They weren't coming to negotiate. They were coming to finish what the first wave had failed to do. Baba Yaga exhaled, slow and even. His posture remained loose, unconcerned, but his eyes sharpened. The tiger shifted beside him, its muscles tensing, anticipating, calculating. The leader smirked, taking a step back. "I don't care how many stories they tell about you," he said. "You're still just human." Baba Yaga's head tilted slightly. Amusement flickered in his gaze. "Am I?" The first missile streaked toward them. The ground quaked on impact, sending dust and debris into the air. The leader shielded his face, grinning through the chaos. There was no escaping this. Not even Baba Yaga could outrun airstrikes. Then he heard it. A low, rumbling growl. Not from the tiger. From behind him. He turned, confusion twisting into horror. Shapes emerged from the dust, massive and silent. More tigers. Not one. Not two. A pack. Cybernetic enhancements gleamed beneath their fur, eyes glowing with the same unnatural intelligence. They moved as one, a synchronized force of nature. The leader's stomach turned to ice. He had never stood a chance. The battlefield was silent now, save for the crackle of fire and the distant groan of twisted metal. The wreckage of the gunship smoldered, sending thick black smoke into the dead sky. The pack of cybernetic tigers moved through the ruins with eerie grace, their golden eyes sweeping for any lingering threats. There were none. Baba Yaga stood still, watching the leader with quiet finality. No gloating, no mockery, just the weight of inevitability pressing down like a vice. The leader sat in the dirt, his body broken, his mind barely able to process what had happened. He had led an elite team. He had come prepared. And yet, they had been nothing. Less than nothing. A footnote in Baba Yaga's legend. He had thought himself the hunter. But from the very beginning, he had been the prey. His mouth was dry, his throat raw. What now? Baba Yaga exhaled, tilting his head slightly, as if considering the question. The tiger closest to him shifted, muscles coiled, waiting for an order that hadn't been given yet. The leader knew what that meant. His fate wasn't sealed yet. Not completely. He could still be useful. Desperation clawed its way into his voice. "I can give you information," he rasped. "More assassins. More warlords. The ones who paid for this job." He swallowed hard, forcing himself to meet Baba Yaga's gaze. "I can help you hunt them." A long silence. The tigers waited. The flames crackled. Then Baba Yaga smiled. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it wasn't amusement. It wasn't mercy. It was something else. Understanding. "You already have," he said. The leader's breath caught. Realization set in like ice down his spine. The moment he'd called for reinforcements. The moment he'd told them Baba Yaga was here. That had been the real trap. They were coming now. More warships. More assassins. Not for Baba Yaga. For him. His employers would see the wreckage of the mission. The loss of their finest. The sheer, unthinkable devastation left in Baba Yaga's wake. And they wouldn't blame the human. They would blame him. Terror stole his voice. He shook his head, hands trembling. No, wait." Baba Yaga turned. The tigers moved with him, slipping into the shadows as effortlessly as they had come. No grand declarations. No final threats. The legend didn't need them. The leader was already dead. Not by Baba Yaga's hand, but by the fear he had unleashed. By the judgment that was already on its way. He was alone now. And the galaxy would not be kind.